When I was at Dr. Bob's on the board, we, of course, during Founders Day, we always had to be working, but I would sneak out every once in a while for speakers that I heard were good speakers. So, well, they were all good speakers, but some were really good. And so I think it was 2000, Angie will correct me, it was either 2009 or 2008. Angie was a Saturday afternoon speaker at Founders Day. And so I snuck out for that, and she just blew me away. And she got sober in Cincinnati, and I had two brothers that lived in Cincinnati. I'm from Cleveland, but I had two brothers that went to school there. And I went to Oak and Burnett, and she talked a lot about that. And it was a great experience for me. And I've got her CDs. I've been listening to her ever since. And so it's my very deep pleasure to introduce to you from Cincinnati, Angie Pepper.
Here she is.
We're going to use this hand.
Oh, is it? Thank you. Hey. Hi, everybody. My name is Angie, and I'm an alcoholic. What an honor it is to be here. I want to thank Alan for asking me, and I get to see my good friend Earl, and I've been riding around in this nice BMW and nice hotel, and all I had to do was just be drunk and homeless. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Be crazy, just be me. So I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, and back home we lived in a little white house on a red dirt road, and we got our water out of wells, and took baths in big steel tubs, and drank buttermilk and ate cornbread. I had flaming red hair and freckles, and nobody else in my family did. And one day my brother had me locked in the outhouse, and he said, "I know why you look the way you do." He said, "Because the mailman is your daddy." So whenever I saw the mailman, I was like, "Daddy!" And I would run up to him, and he'd put his arms around me and pat me on the head, tell me how cute I was. And thank God for the Big Bug sponsorship. I found out that turned out to be a little pattern for me, actually. Yeah, I was wondering when y'all was going to get it. That if you just put your arms around me and told me how cute I was, we were basically married at that point. 6 months later, I'm going, "What's your last name again?" So I'm from a family of Baptist ministers, and I was supposed to partake. And my dad got a job preaching at a church in Cincinnati, so they moved him up there, and then he worked to find us a place to live, and he's traveling back and forth from Greenville to Cincinnati, and traveling back and forth, he found himself a little girlfriend, and but he still moved us up to Cincinnati, and he went up on the hill to live with his girlfriend and her kids, and that left my mom to raise my brother, sister, and myself. And I'll tell you, my mom passed not too long ago, and it's been a rough one. I feel like I didn't get enough time with her. But I feel her, like whenever I go speak, I always feel her. And sometimes I hear her, like, "You better quit all that cussing." You know what I mean? Like that. And so we moved to this little town. And my mother, education was always important to my mother. We had to speak proper English at all times. We couldn't use any slang. We went to Catholic schools, and no slang at all. Perfect English all the time. And we couldn't even say fart. We had to say flagellate. That'll get you beat up in school. And yeah. "Mrs. Miller, Tony flagellated." You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, and I'd be in some bush, after school was over. But she was very, very strict about that. And so I went to this Catholic school, and so now I got a flaming red afro, a white blouse, a plaid skirt, bobby socks, and black and white Spaldings. And I saw me every day, and I knew that I definitely had never seen another black person that looked like me. And so I had just took on that I was the only one. And I had a a rough time in school. I mean, I was a weird kid, man. I was a weird kid. I'm telling you, when I drank alcohol, thank God, because everything was about me. Everything. And my mom worked hard, and she just wanted us to do good. And we had moved into this little neighborhood. They said we lived in the projects, but it was only 2 buildings. And I was like, okay, the projects. And all the kids were like, that's where poor people live. And I was like, are we poor? And I asked my mother, I said, Mother, are we poor? And she goes, did you eat? And I was like, yes, ma'am. She goes, poor people don't eat. And I was like, what? Things that people said to me hit me differently. My mom would say that to my brother and sister, and they knew exactly what she was talking about. I always questioned everything. And so my mommy got a better job, and she moved us to this all-white neighborhood. But wait, let me tell you, I was scared to death as a kid, too. And so I'm going to this Catholic school, and there's this girl, Squeaky, who's about 5'10" in the 5th grade. And her and her little posse beat up all the kids that were different. And I knew my day was coming. I just didn't know when it was. And I was walking home one day, and I heard them behind me. I heard their footsteps, and I took off running. And they were throwing stones at me. And I got to the house, and I told my mom, I said, whew, I am so glad I made it in the house. They were about to kill me. And whenever my mother sounded like this, I knew she meant business. She goes, you know, Angela, honey, at some point, you're going to have to learn how to stand up for yourself. So, Angela, what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to go out there and fight Squeaky. I said, you want me to do what? She said, or you can stay in here and get the butt whooping that I'm going to give you. And I knew what hers felt like, and I only knew what Squeaky's appeared to be. So she was standing out by the this big oak tree we had that sat in between the projects. And I walked up to her. My mom was in the screen door, and I walked up to her, and I said, my mother said I'm supposed to. No, I didn't. I said, my mother said I'm supposed to fight you. She said, well, come on then. So I remember when my brother would play box with his friends, he'd always have his 2 pinkies up. He'd be rocking back and forth like this. So I closed my eyes all tight. And I used to think the committee in my head was only there as an adult. I've since learned it's always been there. So I'm standing in front of this big Amazon, and I hear a little voice over here say, don't forget to reach up. Then I hear another one over here say, she gonna kill you. Then I hear the one in the back says, do it now. So I reached up. I got her right here. It was like the happiest day of my life, man. I could not believe it. I hit the giant. But she didn't budge when I hit her. As a matter of fact, she laughed. And I said, you getting ready to kill me, huh? And she gave me the big beat down. But I got this thing called alcoholism that helps me remember what I should forget and forget what I should remember. And all I remember was that I hit her and I got her good. She beat me so bad that my mom had to come out of the screen door, pull this big Amazon off of me, and right when she pulled her off of me, I went like this to my mom. So we're walking back to our little apartment, and I'm like, I did it, Mother. And my mother says, you know what, you are all kinds of special, honey. And from that point on, I fought all the time. And so my mom decided to move us out of this poor neighborhood, and she moved us into a all-white neighborhood. So from the age of 13 to 20, I wasn't even black anymore. I listened to Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, and my favorite girl group was Heart. Yeah, first concert I ever went to was Led Zeppelin, baby, 1975. Bum, 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 yeah. Yeah, there's a lady. Yeah. I was at the Ted Nugent Foreigner concert one night, and Foreigner was singing Feels Like the First Time, and I looked around that whole Coliseum. It was 30,000 white people and me. I remember thinking, I am bad. And I hung out with these 5 white girls. They could do whatever they wanted to do. I mean, I was over at my friend Rebecca's house, and Rebecca's father said something to her, and she goes, bite me, Dad. And I was like, what? They could do whatever. We would be leaving out of Rebecca's house, and her mother was like, be home at 11. And they were like, whatever. You could not do that with my mother. My mother tried to whoop me when I was like 32. You know what I mean? It didn't change for her. And so one day, Rebecca came over to my house. She had a brown bag, 2 bottles. Boone's Farm. Boone's Farm apple wine. You know, I get to speak at my church on occasions. And when I tell them that I drank Boone's Farm, they're never as excited as you guys are. Never as excited. I don't care where I go, in or out of the country. You mention Boone's Farm, and if you're alcoholic, you know what that is. You know what I mean? And so she gave me a bottle, and she said her brothers had schooled her in the art of chugging, and we were to smack the bottom of them, twist the cap off, drink as long as hard as we could. And that's what I did. And I can guarantee you what happened to me did not happen to my friend Rebecca. I drank that stuff and I swallowed. Something hit the bottom of my feet, and it rose slowly, like through my whole entire body. I just stood there staring, and it hit my head. And I made a conscious decision that was something I was going to do every opportunity I got. And then I fought Becky, because, you know, I'm a boxer now. And we hung out. And, I mean, we did everything. We went to concerts. We hung out in bars. We drank alcohol. I don't mean any disrespect. You know, I smoked a little marijuana. I didn't really like it because, you know, my answer to everything was whoa. And they threw a match in my afro at school. And so I was walking down the hall just smoldering. You know what I mean? And they were like, hey, Pepper, your afro's on fire. And I was like, whoa. And then I got further down the hallway, and the principal, Mr. Shively, said, Pepper, go look at yourself in the bathroom. And by the time I got to the bathroom, it was just like 2 black cones. You know what I mean? And I remember looking in the mirror going, whoa. Yeah, so I didn't really like that. And then I would eat things in the freezer that had been there for years. And alcohol was my thing. And, you know, my friend Rebecca, she did it all. And she introduced me to a couple little pills called strawberry mescaline. I don't mean to disrespect, just my story. And it got me a mental health diagnosis. And it did, man. I'm not even sure if it's all gone. You know what I mean? Like, some days I think I'm just, you know, triggered into another dimension. And, you know, we went to this McDonald's this one day. I have to tell you guys this. And the day that they gave me the strawberry mescaline, we went, I was driving, and we pulled into the McDonald's drive-through. And that's when it hit me. And all of a sudden, it was like the arch on the McDonald's got so hot. I mean, it was like burning the side of my face. So I had my sunglasses turned this way, you know what I mean? And then it felt like the steering wheel just like got really big, you know? So I'm pulling into McDonald's like this. So I get up to the first window, and, you know, back then they had that little yellow box with 9 holes in it. And, you know, there's some little dude in there going, what do you want? I said, what do you want? Tell me what you want right now. And so I felt attacked, you know what I mean? And I'm alcoholic. If you attack me, I'm going to attack you right back. And so he kept asking me, what you want, what you want. So finally I was like, hey, what do you and your little dudes in there want with me? You know what I mean? And we got to the next window, and some girl had the longest eyelashes I'd ever, you know what I mean? And oh, I was just stuck. And then we got to the third window, and some guy's got a visor 10 times it's the size of a regular one, and he's going, salt or ketchup, you know what I mean? And so by that time, I was gone to a place that I didn't ever think I'd come back. And I couldn't move my car, couldn't do anything. And they called the police because the drive-through line is now out and going up the road. And they called the police, and the police come, and you know, he parks right there at the drive-thru like this, and I'm sitting like this, and he gets out of the car, and he's the biggest, fattest cop I ever seen in my life, and he's walking towards me, and everything on him is jiggling. And he goes, roll your window down. And I was like, no. He said, roll your window down. I was like, I don't know you. So my friends are in the back seat like, roll the window down. I was like, no, I'm not. So I rolled it down a little bit. And I said, there you go. He goes, what's your name? And I was like, Luke Skywalker. He goes, if you don't roll this window down, if you don't roll. So I rolled it down because he started getting weird. You know what I mean? And he told me to pull over because he could now see that something was clearly wrong with me. And I pull over and he arrests me. And nobody can tell me this did not happen. I know it did. I think about it from time to time. And I got in the back of that car, and right before I got in the back of that car, his badge goes, "You going to jail. That's where you going. You going to jail." You gonna do time, a lot of time. And I was traumatized, man, all the way to the police station. I was like, get your badge, man. Tell your badge to leave me alone, man. So anyway, they called my mom and told her I was in trouble. And she said, well, okay, well, make sure she stays warm, and hung up. And so, yeah, that's where it all started. And I ended up going to the juvenile center and stayed there till I went to court, came out, and started drinking immediately. I'm not your alcoholic that went to school. I showed up there, but I never went to class, really. I drank all the time. That's what we did. Me and these 5 girls, and I can tell you that 5 out of the 5 girls that I hung out with are all in AA now. I know, I think that's so hilarious. But we all think the other was worse than the other. You know what I mean? And I'm an artist. You know, I just knew, like, somebody was going to discover me. I've been singing since I was 3 in my great-granddaddy and my granddaddy's church. And I just knew one day that somebody was just going to discover me. And I would drink, and I would wait. And my dad got me a job at a recording studio. And I'm in this recording studio, and I hit my best Whitney Houston note. And I love the stage. And I came out, and there was this tall black gentleman standing there. And he goes, was that you singing? I said, yeah. As a matter of fact, it was. Because it had happened. It's time. I am getting discovered. He goes, I can make you famous. So I went home. And let me tell you about my friend Rebecca. White families have family meetings. I learned that with them. If there was a problem in the family meeting. Everybody in the house would raise like a choir, you know what I mean? And go upstairs, and one day they had a family meeting, and Rebecca's mother came out. She was an accountant. She had a beautiful suit on. She had this goblet of wine, and she looks at her daughter, and she goes, Rebecca. That's my white woman voice. Rebecca. Now, my sponsor tells me that what people say and what I hear is 2 totally different things. So I'm going to tell you what I heard. Rebecca, your father and I have been communicating. And we understand that there's been some alcohol consumption. So, Rebecca, your father and I have agreed that if you're going to drink, we'd like for you to drink at home. I said, what did your mother just say? She goes, yeah. She thinks it's safer. I thought that was the closest family I ever met in my life. I remember I ran home. I was like, Mama, can I have a beer? She goes, no. I said, okay, I'm going down to Becky's house. And I hung out with Becky, and, we just got into mischief, and I met this guy, and I'm going to Vegas, and so I call a family meeting. That didn't quite go the way Becky's did. And when they eventually got there, I sat him down, and I told him, I'll be back for you. As soon as I get my first Grammy, I'll be back for you, and never again will we have to live in poverty. My mom goes, we don't live in poverty. Whatever. I'll be back for you. And my dad goes, Angie, I don't think that's a good idea. My little sister goes, Angie, don't go. My mom was like, And so I left with this man and I went out to Las Vegas, and I was a young girl singing in casinos, making a lot of money and having the time of my life. I had arrived. But I had this thing called alcoholism that I didn't know I had. And I'm drinking every night, all night long. And something started happening to me that may not happen to you. But I started waking up with different people. Okay, so it's happened to a few of you, I get it. And I'm waking up next to some guy named Zeb. And he's got one tooth and it's gold. And he's going, you told me you loved me last night. I was like, wow, Zeb, that alcohol. And that's the way it went. And this gentleman that I was with had his own little affliction. And we went from having everything to having nothing. And we're living in a seedy hotel. I'm getting blacklisted. I can't get a job. And one day he comes to the hotel after being out for 2 nights. And he had a look of desperation on his face, and he said, I need you to drive me to the store. And I drove him to the store, and I had a 5th of Thunderbird Classic that I had been drinking on since wee in the early mornings. And I drove him to the store, and he went into the store, and he robbed the place, and he shot and he killed the owner. And when he came out of the store with all that blood on him, and he jumped in the car and he told me to go, that's what I did. And a few short blocks later, I would be snatched out of the car with guns held to my head, and cops telling me, if you budge, we'll blow your head up. I want to tell you that this gentleman just died in that Nevada prison about 2 years ago. I got a floater out of the state of Nevada for the governor who said, please don't ever come back here. And I left. I went back to Cincinnati and I told my family, that's it. No more drinking for me. And I meant that, you guys, from the bottom of my heart. I meant that. And it lasted all of 2 weeks. I didn't know that I was powerless over alcohol and that it dictated and managed my life. I hadn't had that realization yet. And a long time ago in Cincinnati, you could get on the city bus and ride it all over Cincinnati for free on Sunday. It was called Sunday Pass riding. And we rolled all over the city and we got to downtown Cincinnati. And there was bars and restaurants and pimps and Cadillacs, and this restaurant had nothing but Cadillacs and pimps and prostitutes in the parking lot. And my little sister looked over there and she said, you couldn't pay me to go there. And my brother was like, shoot, me neither. And I was thinking, I'm going there tomorrow. And I started riding the number 20 bus from the suburbs downtown, and I'm drinking with these people, but they are now my people. They drank like I did. I had 3 friends, 3 guys. Their names was No Neck, Greasy Feet, and Tie Dye. My friends, they looked out for me. They had my back. They even taught me how to go in a department store with a girdle on and steal outfits. Roll them up. Line them up around that girdle. Close my jacket and walk out of that store and go sell that stuff for the remarkably low price of. And then I had a thought. Why would I steal and sell and share with them? I can do this myself. And I got arrested because I was intoxicated in a store called Shillitoe's. I had stole so much merchandise, it was clothes hanging out of down below my skirt. I had about 10 Monet necklaces around my neck, and just clothes everywhere. It was so bad that when I got to the door to leave, the cop goes, seriously? And he takes me to jail. And he adds up everything that I had. And I went to jail. I got processed in that jail and got a physical and found out I was pregnant. And I thought, well, I mean, I don't think I'll go to jail, but I don't think they send pregnant women to jail. Did you guys know that they do? I was clueless. And I got sentenced, and my mother was there, and she said nothing good. She told them that I would be safer locked up. And that judge at my sentencing said, "You don't even belong down here. I sentence you to no less than 7, no more than 25 years in the Ohio Reformatory for Women." I was like, me? I'm going to prison? The only reason why I didn't lose my mind, you guys, was because I was pregnant. And I would rub my stomach and I would tell my baby, when I get out of here, it's going to be different. By this time, nobody in my family was talking to me. And the warden came to me and told me that I had to find a place for my child to go, or he would become a ward of the state. And for the first time since I started doing time, I called home. And I told my mother I needed her to come up to the prison. And my mother said, "Angie, honey, we don't visit prisons." And I said, "I need you to come up and get my baby." And you could hear a pin drop. And my mother said, "Angela, you have a baby?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am. And I need you to come and get it." My parents drove up to that penitentiary and they picked up my son. They did not stop to visit me. I watched my son leave that farm and I stared at him through a slit this big. He had on a little blue onesie and that little blue hat. And I remember saying to myself, I'm going to be a good mother when I get out. And I meant that, you guys, from the bottom of my heart. When I got my freedom, my son was 4 years old. All the way down 71 South, all I could think about was my child. I can't wait to touch his hand, to go on walks with him, to do what mothers do with their sons. I can't wait. I got to downtown Cincinnati, and it said more about alcoholism. Suddenly the thought crossed my mind that I could have one drink. And I went to that bar to have that one drink, and it would be years before I saw my son again. See, I'm alcoholic. I'm alcoholic. Years before I saw him again. The next time that I would reunite with my family was that they were coming to pick up my daughter. Now, before I got pregnant with my daughter, I'm living on the banks of the Ohio River. And I'm drinking wine out of a brown bag. I'm dirty and I'm nasty. There was a boarding house right down on the river. And a woman used to come down to the homeless camp. And she would see who was eligible to go and be a transient in this boarding house. And they gave me a room as a transient. And I'm traveling back and forth from that building to the bar daily. And I'm drinking. And I come back one day, and I'm sick because I went with some guy to do other substances, and he substituted mine for ice water. And it was shot into my veins. And I'm walking 16 blocks, asking God every single step, please, don't let me die like this. And I got to that building, and there was a little blonde white woman there who looked at me. It seemed like everything stood still. And she said to me, looked me right in my face and said, "You do not have to keep living like this." And I said, "Ma'am, I'm sick. I need some help." And she went upstairs to that little room with a bed in it. And she put a towel on my head and she began to tell me about her drinking. And she asked me if I would go somewhere with her, and I said, "Will it make me feel better?" And she said, "Absolutely." And she took me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, when I came into AA, there weren't a lot of black people in AA. Well, kind of like tonight. And I see a couple of y'all. Hey, girl. Stay on in here. Just feel special. That's what I did. I felt like they needed me, honey, all the wisdom I had. So she takes me to my first meeting, and we're walking up these walk, and these older white men are reaching their hands out. Hey, I'm Wino Bill. I'm Big Book Bob. I'm 12 and 12 Tim. I said, well, they got some interesting nicknames. And I'm going up the steps, and all of a sudden, the biggest biker dude I ever saw in my life grabs me around my waist and goes, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Squirrel. I was like, Squirrel, you're going to have to put me down, man. And we went into the building. And I walked into the building, and there was these two big pictures of these two white men. And I was like, that must be the president and the vice president. And I went and I sat in this meeting, and I sit in that seat today. And that meeting is my home group, the Friday night brain damaged group. This man got up. Well, they passed the basket first. Well, they prayed first. I was like, oh, Lord, here we go. And then they passed the basket, and it went past me, and I took a couple bucks because I thought they was giving it away. And my sponsor was the one that told me you don't take out of the basket. Then this older gentleman got up and he was telling his story. And this is what I heard. He said, my name's so-and-so, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'm a thankfully grateful alcoholic. I'm so grateful, I'm thankful. And Then he said, I have not beat my wife in 7 days. That's what I thought he said. And it seemed like you guys all went, bravo. Then he said, I ain't had a drink either. Great. And I remember sitting there thinking, these white people crazy as hell. So then you guys rose up, thanked him after he spoke. And then the little woman I'm with goes, yeah, we usually thank the speaker after. And I was like, great, because I got a couple questions. And so I go up to him, and he goes, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous, little darling. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous, little darling. So I pulled him close to me when I shook his hand. I said, look here. I said, your buddy's laughing at you. Your audience, they were all laughing at your story. And he goes, oh, sugar, darling, you just keep coming back. I said, oh, no. I just heard you. You keep coming back. I don't know what this organization is, but apparently you should be on the board. But I stayed around AA. It wasn't like I had a huge social schedule or anything. And I stayed around AA, and I was going to meetings, reading the book. And about this time, I don't mean any disrespect, crack started coming into AA. Oh, yeah. The crackheads were here. And I had a huge problem with it. And they used to come in and sit at this round table at the back of the room, and none of them would blink. And they would, And I felt like they all weighed the same thing. Like they waited till each other got to be 70 pounds, and then they came to us. Like we're supposed to fix them. And so I remember I went back to the round table, and I said, look, you can stay here, but you cannot talk. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. Maybe they'll come up with a Crackaholics Anonymous. I don't know. But until then, you remain quiet, and I'll be your sponsor. Oh, yeah. I'm back at the round table. I got the big book open. I'm reading it at the top of my lungs, to the point where my sponsor would come, Angela, come here. And I closed my book all tired, and I'm like, what? She goes, what are you doing? Helping them. She goes, but why do you have to do it so loud? Oh, okay. So if they wanted to go to the bathroom, I follow them. I said, who got to go to the bathroom? Let's go. Then I stand outside the door, and if they were in there too long, I'm like, come on out of there. You better not be smoking in there. We don't smoke in here. Come on out of there. You don't weigh but 70. How much liquid you got in your body? Come on out of there. And I'm telling you guys this to tell you this. So one day, I'm at a meeting, wasn't a cloud on the horizon. And you guys were talking about God using you as an instrument. I said, you know what? I think God is using me as an instrument too. And he want me to go find some black people and bring them into Alcoholics Anonymous. So I said, well, I've been here for a while, so surely they would want to know if I was leaving. So I went to the Wednesday night, 8:30 meeting, and they asked if it was any AA-related announcements. Old timer goes, Angie. I said, look here, I'm going to roll on up out of here. Thank you for the real big book and all the coffee. I hope y'all know the alcohol is bad. And yeah, thanks for everything. And I'm in the middle of my departure speech. And this old timer goes, well, get out of here then. There's people trying to stay sober. We'll see you if you make it back. And I was like, who do you think he's talking? So I grabbed my big book because now I got a resentment, right? But when I march all these black people in here, he's going to be the first one I have one of them smack. I said it. I was thinking it. So I said, the first black person I see drunk, I'm going to carry the message. So I went down and I rode the number 43 bus came. I got on it. 2 stops down, a brother gets on drunk. I said, bingo. I slid over next to him with my big book. I said, my brother, have you been drinking? He said, yeah, I had a little something, something. I said, you might be alcoholic. So he started cussing me out on the bus and everything. And I told him, I said, you know, the people from the AA Club told me you would probably react like this to my information. So I think it's wise that I give it to you the only way that I know how and the only way that I think that you'll receive it. And I told you I'm from a family of Baptist ministers. So I stood up on that bus and I opened up that big book to chapter 5. And I said, rarely did you hear what I said? I said, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. I said, those who do not recover are those who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And the bus driver was like, oh, hell no. He put me off the bus. And I told him, I said, and you, Mr. Bus Driver, are an alcoholic too. So I went down to the bar where I knew it was some black alcoholics, right? And I walked in there because y'all had told me about the masks we all wear. And I walk into the bar and they on the dance floor. But I know deep down inside they are miserable. So I snatched the plug out of that jukebox. I said, black alcoholics, I'm about to save your life. They got a place for you. Never again do you have to hang out in places like this. They said, well, what you doing down here? I said, I graduated. And step 18 says that I'm to help you. So they said, girl, if you don't plug that jukebox in, we'll kill you. So I said, you know, the people from the AA Club, you know, they told me you'd react like this. So I climbed up on the bar stool and opened up that big book to chapter 5. And I said, rarely did you hear what I said? I said, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And the bar owner comes up to me, pokes me in my head and goes, get out. Pushed me out of the door and locked it. He said, you can't come in here with that. I'm trying to make money. So I started reading the big book to passersby, and suddenly the thought crossed my mind. Surely one drink won't hurt me. You guys are so funny. If you can hear from mine, it's like, oh. What is that? Oh, now we've been shot and stabbed and everything. One drink won't hurt me. Oh. So I went back into the bar, had a shot of gin. 45 minutes later, I was in a crack house. I know, I know. When I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, June the 20th, 1991, I weighed 95 pounds. My hair was matted to my head, and I'd had the same clothes on for weeks. I was living in abandoned buildings. I was drinking alcohol and smoking crack. I had a cocaine-induced heart attack. And all the people, my friends, left me for dead. If it wasn't for this lady named Miss Jessie who saw my gym shoes, you'd have a different speaker. I got out of that hospital and I started drinking again. And I went into a blackout. And I left downtown Cincinnati, and when I came out of that blackout, I was walking up the steps to 405 Oak Street, which is our clubhouse. And I walked in, and that old timer from that meeting was in the bar, and he said, "Angie, you're going to die." I said, "I know, and I need you to help me." And he took the big book off the shelf, and he opened it up. And he slammed his hand down on those first 2 pages, which are white. No words. He said, "This is what you know about staying sober." Then he said, "Are you willing to go to any lengths?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You go out there and you shake people's hands when they come in that door." And I said, "Look at me." He said, "Are you willing to go to any lengths?" I said, "Yes, sir." And I stood at that door, and based on the way that I looked, people walked around me, and I put my hand out. And I said, "My name is Angie. I'm an alcoholic." And they wouldn't shake my hand. See, we can't get too good in here. Because that next stinking homeless person in AA could be your fundraiser speaker. We can't get too good in here. I'm the wrong person to talk to if you can't get sober because you don't have anywhere to live. I had nothing. I was at the clubhouse from the time it opened till the time it closed, and people began to see my willingness. And they started inviting me to their homes to sleep on their couch. And those days turned into weeks, turned into months, turned into years. I want to tell you real quick before I close about my kids. My daughter, when she was born, was saturated with alcohol because I had had no prenatal care. I drank my entire pregnancy. When I had her, they took her into nursery and they took me to medical because I was giving her up for adoption. I'm in medical and the doctors come in and they're screaming at me. "How much do you drink?" I said, "I don't know. I drink all the time." "How much do you do?" "Your daughter's body is saturated." So my daughter came into this world drunk. They said she would not function. And I'm here to tell you that a year ago my daughter became a doctor. And it says it in the book, it says, because there's one who has all power. And she's doing so good. My son is in prison almost for the rest of his life. In the last letter I got from him, he said, "Hi, Mama. My name is Angie. My name is Chris. I'm an alcoholic." And so he got sober in prison. So if you take meetings into institutions, God bless you. My son wouldn't have got it any other way. Back home, my grandmother, she used to give us sassafras tea and put a mint leaf in it. And she would sit in her rocking chair and she would hum this song. And I didn't know the meaning of that song until I got the opportunity to speak at the International Convention in 2005. And I'm going to close with this. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. See, I was lost. Ooh, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Thank you, New York.